All right. So is this visible? Is this Word document visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. This is what we saw yesterday towards the end of the class. Okay. Uh, just to recapitulate, and then we'll build further on this. So what we saw was that research thinking is essentially critical thinking and also innovative thinking. By critical thinking, you have to raise good questions. So critical thinking is used for mainly two purposes. A, to identify the research gap, you need to have a very critical thing. You need to apply critical thinking. To evaluate the research already completed by you or by others, you require critical thinking. Okay, so to define your problem, you require critical thinking, and then once you are in the process of research or you have completed your research, whether you have done a good work or at least a reasonably good work, that requires critical thinking. That evaluation requires critical thinking. Okay, and in the process of doing research, you will have to interpret the research done by others. You will have to interpret the theories. You will have to interpret the data. You will have to interpret the methods used by others. You will have to interpret the criteria used for evaluation of criteria used as a to evaluate whether something is good or bad. So something is good or bad with reference to a criteria. The moment the criteria changes, what was good may not remain so good. What was bad may not remain so bad once the criteria changes. Right? So we have to interpret the criteria, because we should not blindly follow the criteria. There is often serious mistakes in defining the criteria. Okay, there are weaknesses in various criteria. So a smart researcher would identify what are those weaknesses and would highlight those weaknesses in an existing criteria and would propose a better criteria. And using that better criteria, one would interpret, one would analyze, one would evaluate, one would infer. So critical thinking essentially would involve interpreting your research as well as others' research or findings or observations. Okay. So it would mean interpreting, it would mean inferring, it would mean evaluating, it would mean explaining. Either of these or all of this. So you are engaged in interpretation, you are engaged in inference, means drawing the conclusions. Must differentiate between interpretation and inference. Interpretation is identifying what is the meaning of it, what is the main point. Inference is what is the conclusion. So what? Okay. Evaluation is to see its credibility. Is it trustworthy or not? Is it correct or not? Is it accurate or not? Is it logical or not? Is it reliable or not? Is it good enough for the purpose or not? That evaluation may require some assessment also. Okay. And critical thinking may require explanation. Okay. To explain your reason, to state what is your reason, and to justify what is your reason. So critical thinking involves all these four things: analysis, evaluation, inference, and explanation. These four processes are applied to either a concept or a group of concepts. You analyze, interpret, evaluate, infer, you explain concepts. So these 5 processes of interpretation, analysis, evaluation, inference, and explanation are applied to various concepts that are used in your work. You apply these 5 processes to a lot of data that you collect, either the primary data or the secondary data or the tertiary data. Data collected by you through your own observation or through instruments, or data collected by others and taken by you. So you apply all these interpretation, analysis, evaluation, inference, and explanation on the data, on the concept, on the method that you use, or the method the others have used. Okay? Or on the criteria that you used as a criteria for evaluation. Okay? And you try to understand the context also through critical thinking, the context in which the whole thing is taking place. Every problem takes place in a context. It is very easy to solve any problem, but it is not so easy to solve problem with reference to the context it is situated in. That requires wisdom and intelligence. Because in a different context, every problem becomes a unique problem. If you try to apply a solution developed for a problem in X context, that solution may not work for the problem in Y context. Because the problem interacts with its own context, with its own ecosystem. And that makes the problem unique. Okay, so as a researcher, you have to critically evaluate others' work and your own work. As a researcher, you are expected to be very good at this set of activities: interpretation, analysis, evaluation, inference, and explanation. And you have to do it in a self-regulated manner. You have to be watchful of how you are progressing. Where are you slipping? Are you making any mistakes? Are you biased in some way? You have to do it in a very self-regulated manner. Is this understood again? We had spent some time on this yesterday, but it is a very, very important concept at the core of all research activities. I thought I'll spend 5 more minutes. Is everybody comfortable with this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will come back to this with some more details little later, maybe today itself. Let me pick something more generic for now. So one of the main objectives of this course is to help you propose your research proposal, to prepare you to propose your research proposal, to train you to prepare your research proposal, to give you all that is required to prepare your research proposal. Okay. So here is a good reference that I picked up. It is a paper that was published around 15 years ago about preparing research proposals. What all should one be mindful of while preparing the research proposal? So this is 2 references have been integrated. One is this paper, Proposing Empirical Research, and other is Succeeding with Your Doctorate. That's a book. Okay. So these 2 references have been distilled into this short notes that are given here. How to succeed with your doctorate, and in order to do that, how to propose good empirical research. Empirical research means the one that requires observations. Okay, the research that requires data. So I believe all of you are going to do research which is about some kind of data, whether you collect the data in the laboratory or in the field. It would have some observation, it will have some analysis of the experience, it will have some interpretation of the experience. So there will be an observation and experience aspect to your research. Okay. So reflecting on your experience or carefully looking at your measurements, carefully looking at your observations and analyzing it further, that kind of research is called empirical research. Okay, and in order to do a good quality research, here are the 6 main steps that you should follow for proposing the research proposal, for preparing your research proposal. First thing you should do is define what your field is. Your field may be disciplinary or it can be interdisciplinary. It can be confined to one discipline, or it can be at the boundary of 2 or more disciplines, where many disciplines contribute to it and draw from this field's knowledge. So first thing you should do is define what your field is. What are the main theories? What are the main research and ideas? Okay, list and define the key terms. Should not use the words in a casual manner, technical words at least. So you should always you should start preparing a list of theories, list of key research papers, and I'm sure in the other course you have been given some tools. What are the other tools that some tools that you have been trained in the academic writing course?
Yes, sir, Zotero.
Some software you have been trained in.
Yes, sir.
What are those?
Zotero, sir, Zotero.
Zotero and?
Sir, mainly on Zotero.
The Mendeley.
Mendeley, yes. So that helps in keeping a track of your progress of literature review. Idea is to identify what are the main theories. You must not lose sight of the main theories. I'm again repeating, I have already said it many times. The main idea of research is to produce new theory. Main purpose of research is to produce new theory. That theory could be about designing things or developing things. But the researcher is motivated primarily to produce theories. And whether those theories are good or not, that may require one to apply those theories as a test case and demonstrate some working machine or working model, or a simulated machine and a simulated model, or even a mathematical model. There is enough research that does not require you to build a machine, but if you can mathematically show that this idea works, even that is acceptable, provided it is logically consistent and complete. Okay, so peer research community has to be convinced, and there are various ways of convincing them. Demonstrating a machine, a working machine, or demonstrating a logically consistent model and explaining it using the accepted structures of a discipline is also okay. So in order to do that, you have to first prepare a document where you define what your field is, and you list the theories, the important research papers, the important ideas in that field. Don't start implementing whatever idea comes to your mind immediately. You have to first understand what is this field about. And when you say what is this field about, what are the theories in it? And theories means theorems, algorithms, architectures, taxonomies, hierarchies, concepts, models, classifications, so on and so forth. Okay. Then, having defined what your field, broad field is, and what are the main theories in it, okay, then you establish what research has been done. Of course, with the help of the literature survey. And how that research relates to your proposed research question or field of study. You have to show how the intellectual thought has developed over the years and what are the major findings. You have to organize the literature into various subgroups based on various topics, some kind of classification. You can't just keep all your 100 papers or 200 or 400 papers as a flat list. You have to group them in different categories. And that categorization can be from, it should be from your point of view, which supports your research. Okay, and see how it all fits together. Try to maintain a 1 or 2 page summary of your literature through a diagram, through a network, through a graph, through a table, whatever. Always try to update your literature review as a 1 or 2 page summary. And as you read more number of papers, you will notice that you cannot just maintain it anymore like a list, because those papers have become too many. You can't maintain them just as a list, as a summary in a summary form. You can't represent the summary of all those papers on a single page if you use the text. So what you can do is you can create a graph, you can create a concept map, you can create a table and place those important papers and important theories and important ideas in that 1 page summary. Try to maintain a 1 page summary. And this 1 page summary will increasingly become visual in nature. In the beginning, it will have some sentences, some points, but increasingly, because your limit is 1 page, you will start being creative and represent them as a tree, as a graph, or some other way, so that all those papers will appear to you, will look like as an integrated whole, where some papers are talking about something, some aspect, some other papers are talking about some other aspect, some idea, and those ideas are interconnected. So that 1 page summary should somehow show how those main ideas are interconnected and what are the important papers that are referring to those main ideas and contributing to those main ideas. And then you should see what methods and approaches have been used by other researchers. How have they collected their data? How have they analyzed their data? What kind of theories have they used? And for what purpose? Having done that, then you should look at what is the gap. What is it that the existing authors, existing researchers in their current work that you have reviewed, and you must ensure that you have reviewed the best literature. You can't pick up a group of papers from any source and say that my literature review is limited to these 10 papers I have picked up from Rajasthan only. Because it is possible that somebody in Delhi or somebody in Tokyo or somebody in New York has contributed to that idea and has made significant contribution there. So you must try to collect the latest information in terms of data, latest information in terms of the ideas and the theories also. Okay. And then identify the gap. and then see how the research that you are proposing is going to be similar or different from the earlier work by others. It is going to be similar to some in some way. It is going to be different even from those that it is similar to. It can't be exactly similar to anything. But it must have some similarity with some papers, and it must have some differentiation from all papers. It must, I'm again repeating, it must have some similarity. Your approach, research approach, etc. It must have some similarity with existing work, and it must be different from all the work that you refer in some way, because research has to be novel. So such a literature review will enable you to make substantial claims about your area. Okay. Yesterday we had discussed at length about research proposal. This discussion of today is further elaborating upon that discussion. It is complementing yesterday's discussion. All right, so read these points, and if there is any point that you want me to further elaborate, I will do that. Take a minute and read all these points. This note I have also posted on the Facebook group. And we will now see how to read papers. Who has not read at least 25 papers among you? All of you, I am assuming you have all read at least 25 papers by now in all the years of education that you have undergone. I'm talking of research papers. During your undergraduate research or postgraduate research or postgraduate studies, and in the last few months that you have been with us. So I am assuming that you have read around 25 papers at least. How do you read papers? What do you do?
सर पहले इसका जो फिफ्थ पॉइंट है आपने जो पढ़ने के लिए कहा था,
हाँ हाँ,
उसमें फिफ्थ पॉइंट में स्वीपिंग ये एंड टू अवॉइड स्वीपिंग जनरलाइजेशन, इसका मतलब समझ नहीं है।
स्वीपिंग जनरलाइजेशन ये हुआ कि आपने कुछ ऑब्जर्वेशन किया, ठीक है, और एक दो एग्जांपल आपको एक जैसी सिमिलर मिल गई, राइट? एंड नाउ based on those two you make a over generalization about everything. It is like saying that you come across some person from Delhi who has cheated you, let's say. What will be a sweeping generalization?
सारे दिल्ली वाले खराब है।
हाँ, वो सब cheat होते हैं. That's a sweeping generalization. And humans have this weakness, है ना?
Yes, sir.
एक तरह का एक दो सैंपल मिल गया and then based on that we overgeneralize. Sweeping generalization is overgeneralization.
Yes, sir.
ये बहुत रिस्की होता है. Any other doubt?
No, sir.
Any other person? Any other doubt?
No, sir.
Okay. So how to read a paper? You know, this is a very, so reading a paper is not very different from reading a book. So there is a very good and very interesting book, How to Read a Book. That's the title of a book. How to read a book. Very important to know how to read a book as a critical reader. Not like a novel. Some people understand and are able to question what they read. Some don't understand. Some understand but are not able to question. So people, same source of information is consumed by us in different manner, differently. Because our technique of consuming that text are different. So here is a technique that is recommended for a critical reader who will not just read it like a devotee. Don't read any book, any paper like a devotee. You have to read it critically. What is the difference into reading it like a devotee or reading it like with a critical eye?
Sir, reading like a devotee
means
it is like param universal truth. It can be changed. It is very true. But reading critically means there what are the process and what is the result, or is it different from the real world? This can be
Okay.
devotee means, sir, believing without knowing facts that it is right or not, believing blindly.
Right.
And reading like a critical means we have to analyze whether facts are given in that book are right or not by reading some another books or some reviews.
Correct. Okay. So here is a way of reading any book or any paper critically, not just as a like a devotee, or not for pleasure, not for just pleasure. Okay. So a researcher should read the literature with reference to their research at least with a critical eye. Okay. So the first, you do it in 3 rounds, not just one reading. At least 3 rounds are required. 3 passes. First pass is with this purpose. You want to find out what is this book or this paper about. Okay. And you have to do it with brevity, with precision. What are its major parts? And how are those major parts ordered and interrelated? What problem is it trying to solve? So what is this book about? What is this paper about? Write a para or even a small para or just bullet points. Develop a very useful habit that I was exposed many years ago. When you read a paper, sit with a pencil or pen, and maybe you already do it. Many of us underline, right? So while you do whatever you have to underline, etc., on the side of the paragraph, write 2-3 words or one single phrase as the main idea being discussed in that paragraph, in your own words. For each para, label it with a word or 2-3 words. Give it a phrase, give it a title, give it a label to each para. This is a very good habit that you will help yourself if you develop this habit. Does anybody do it already? No. So start doing it today. You have to read actively, not passively. Hello. हाँ हाँ बोलो. मैं क्लास में हूँ, बाद में बात कर ले. Hello. Hello. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So label a meaningful title for each paragraph. That will help you to identify what is it about. And then if you scan through those labels, then you know what is it about. Otherwise, what happens? By the time you are on the third page, you have already lost what was there on the first page. Right? So label the paragraphs on the side, write a word or 2 or 3 words as the main. Maybe try to interconnect them. So you see a visual summary, a diagrammatic summary of that paper or that book in front of you. And once you have a summary of a 20-page paper on a single sheet, that too visually, you will be able to see how different things are interconnected, why there is third para and why there is first para, how third para is supporting or contradicting the first para. Those kind of interconnections you can see between the parts of the paper or the book. Okay, so try to identify what is this book or paper about. That is the first pass of reading. In the second pass, you try to interpret the book's content or the paper's content. Interpret the content. Okay. So you are comfortable with the keywords that are used by the author. Be familiar with them. If you don't know some word, you know that. Okay. What is the main idea that the author is trying to propose in his book or in his paper? Try to put that. What is the main argument? And what problem is he trying to solve? And what problem has he solved? And when I'm saying he, it can also be she. So determine which problem the author has actually solved. What he initially in the first cut, we said that try to find out what problem has the author solved, is trying to solve. then see, has the author really solved that problem that he wanted to solve? Or what part of the problem has she been able to solve, and what part has she not been able to solve? What has evaluate the success of the author with respect to their intention? This is interpreting the paper's content or the book's content. Having done this second round, now comes the third round. You have to, I said, you have to read critically. Critically reading means you have to find out what is the main meaning. Critical reading means what? We have already said. Critical meaning means you have to explain, you have to interpret, you have to infer, you have to evaluate, right? You have to do all those activities with reference to the paper that is in front of you. Okay, find out its weaknesses. Okay, maybe find out if author has not taken cognizance of some important theory or some important finding by some other researchers or some data that is already available in the domain. In some way, author may be uninformed and is trying to conclude things in ignorance. Okay, so try to find out where is the author's source of uninformation. Author would say what are the sources of information. One will not say what are the sources of uninformation. So that you have to do. What are the sources of ignorance? Uninformation means ignorance. Uninformation is not a correct word. So I'm just using to highlight it. What are the sources of author's ignorance? Maybe he or she has not collected the data appropriately, or he or she has ignored a kind of data, or maybe he or she has ignored a set of theories, or he or she has ignored certain aspect in the criteria. So there can be various sources of ignorance that the author may have left. Those need to be captured by you. There will be sources of misinformation. They will be wrongly stating some theory, they'll be wrongly putting some facts, wrongly interpreting something. So identify where is author misinformed, uninformed as well as misinformed. And maybe somewhere author is illogical. Okay, and maybe author is incomplete in their discourse, in their description, in their interpretation, in their evaluation, in their inference, in their explanation, in their analysis. Okay, so in there, all those five activities that we discussed in critical thinking: analysis, evaluation, inference, interpretation, and explanation. Author may be uninformed, author may be misinformed, author may be illogical, author may be incomplete. And you as a third person have to highlight that. That is the beginning of identifying the research gap. Now, if you pick up very weak papers and try to find out the gaps based on those weak papers, these are not going to be internationally acceptable. You must find out these sources of these, you must critique good sources. Don't pick up third-rate papers from anywhere and start critiquing those papers and tell that this is the gap in the literature. That is not going to be acceptable. That gap is a very local gap. It may not exist in reality because good researchers have already addressed that concern. You have to keep in mind that everything that is published is really not of good quality. Okay. And before trying to criticize a paper for these weaknesses, complete round 1 and round 2. These, before doing these 2 rounds, do not try to criticize. Do not say I agree, I disagree, etc. Suspend your journal, your judgment. First you understand and then make a judgment, whether you agree or not. Differentiate between knowledge and personal opinion. Okay. This is a simple technique of reading papers and literature critically. Okay. Go through these points, and if there is something that you need explanation, I will explain. Are you all comfortable with this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we will further elaborate it. Oh, Satya Singh disconnect हो गया. Okay.
सर एक क्वेश्चन है.
हाँ. Yes.
एक बार वो दिखा दो मुझे. अच्छा हाँ सर. नहीं सर, जैसे कोई पेपर पढ़ रहे हैं, हमें
हाँ.
कुछ लगी, उसमें क्रिटिसिज्म किया तो उसमें कुछ काफी मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन निकली, तो हमें है ना आगे उनको भी हेल्प करनी चाहिए.
किनको?
जो उस पेपर का राइटर है.
नहीं, तुम्हें हेल्प करने की कोई रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है उसकी. उसने तो छाप दिया. अब वो हो सकता है तुम्हारी हेल्प को लेने में इंटरेस्टेड ही ना हो. तो what you have to do is, you have to, if you are working in that area and you have found misinformation, you write that that paper is having this misinformation.
ओके सर.
है ना?
यस सर.
Yeah. So in your literature review, you write that so and so is writing this, but this is wrong.
यस सर.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So with reference to this critical reading, here is some more idea, and then we can possibly conclude today's class. So Richard Paul has been working on critical thinking for many decades, and he has written many books and a lot of stuff on critical thinking. And he has proposed a framework of critical thinking, and it is a very good framework. I like it. Okay. I've been sharing this framework with my students for the last at least 15 years in more than one course. So critical thinking is a mode of thinking which takes charge of the structure of thinking, structures inherent in thinking, and imposing some intellectual standards upon them. We'll see how and what is the meaning of this. So as per this framework, all our thinking, your thinking, my thinking, and that author's thinking has certain elements of thoughts. These are the main elements of thoughts. So while critically reviewing an argument, a piece of work, we should try to identify what are the elements of thoughts. Okay. First element is every argument, every group of statements, or every piece of work we believe should have a purpose. We are doing a critical review of the literature. So we should try to identify what is the purpose of this literature. What is it trying to do? We have already said it in the past reference. First, identify what the book is about. What problem is it trying to solve? So what is the purpose? Is this purpose clear? Is it purpose clearly understood by you? If the purpose is not clearly understood, maybe either the paper is bad or your reading has not been critical as yet. Okay. You figure out what problem is this paper or book trying to solve. What is the question that it is trying to answer or settle? What is a central question? What is a central problem that it is trying to solve? Okay, which is in alignment with the purpose. Okay, now every reasoning, whether formal reasoning or informal reasoning, and in our conversation also, daily routine conversation, we make a lot of assumptions. It is based on certain assumptions, right? Lot of arrangements that we make because we assume certain things, right? So we have to identify what are those assumptions. Maybe those assumptions are right. Maybe those assumptions are not right. Maybe those assumptions are incomplete. Maybe those assumptions are not clear. Maybe those assumptions are not relevant. There may be a problem with the assumptions. Okay. And every argument is done from a point of view. Okay. Every piece of work that is proposed in literature, there is a point of view from which it is written. You have a view because you have a point of view. The moment you change the point of view, your view will change. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Have you experienced it? Have you ever looked at things from a different point of view? It's a difficult task. To look at things from a different point of view is a difficult task. But every reasoning, every piece of work that comes to us, even the news that is proposed to us by the media, they have a point of view and hence they put that news in a certain manner. Some other channel will have a different point of view and will put the same news in a different manner. Have you seen this?
Yes,
Two
sir.
different channels showing the same news in a different manner.
Republic Bharat or NDTV.
Yes, sir. Number of times.
Because both have a different point of view.
Yes, sir.
Both have a different point of view. Okay. This reasoning is based on data, information, and evidence. Right? So this information, data, also there is a lot of story in this also. You may deliberately collect some data, you may deliberately avoid collecting some data. Possible or not?
Yes, sir.
We see that in the channels. Some channels show us data of some type, some other channels show us data of some other type. They deliberately pick up data that suits their point of view. Right? These ideas are shaped by concepts. This argument, this whole paper, whatever the whole paper is, or piece of work or argument, is shaped by concepts and ideas and theories. Theories are very, very important in our intellectual space. Theories give us spectacles to look at things. Theories give us prisms to look at things. In the absence of theories, the world would become so dull. We will not understand it. We understand the world only, thank God we have theories, and that's why we understand the world. Otherwise, we would not understand the world or understand it very superficially. Most of the understanding that you have it because you are able to see the reality with the lenses of a theory. So you understand. When you say I understand, that means that the reality that you have seen maps to some aspects of some theory that you have built or you have acquired. Okay, so argument is expressed through concepts and ideas, and argument is shaped by concepts and ideas, both ways. When you build an argument, this argument has to be shaped by concepts and ideas. You can't build an argument in isolation from the existing theory. New argument has to be built, has to be grounded in the existing theory. And it is to be expressed through concepts and ideas. Some of them may be already existing, and you may even introduce new concepts and ideas. This argument contains inferences and interpretations. Okay. And there are consequences. So every argument, any piece of literature, and I'm not talking of fiction, I'm talking of research literature, would have this. Even fiction would have it. You write a story from a certain character's point of view. You can write the same, a different story from another character's point of view. Many people have tried to do that. Some authors have tried to write story from another character's point of view. Like Tulsidas and Valmiki wrote Ramayana from Rama's point of view. Right? There are some other writers, at least in the modern time, few of the people have tried to write it from Ravan's point of view. And if you read that, then he doesn't look like such a big villain. He has weaknesses, but he doesn't look like such a big villain. If you read the story from that point of view. Okay, so this is very, very important. You know, we have to read critically so that we can see what is the purpose that motivates the author, what is the question or the problem that the author is trying to address or settle or solve, what kind of information sources is he using or not using, okay, and what he is not using or not using, maybe purposefully. There is a hidden agenda there of not using certain information and not showing certain information. So that is part of misinformation that Manish was just saying. And there is inference, there is information, there is conclusion, there are theories that this whole argument is based upon, and there are assumptions that may be partially correct or may be incorrect. Okay. And you have to be mindful of the implications and consequences. These are the elements of the thoughts. So what Paul suggests is very nice framework. Apply certain intellectual standards to all these elements of thoughts. These are the elements of thoughts, 8 elements of thoughts: purpose, question, point of view, information, inference, concept, implication, assumption. Check whether these are clear, whether there is accuracy in it, whether this is relevant, whether it is logical, does it have enough breadth, is it precise, is it significant, is it complete, is it fair, does it have depth. Some of this may be applicable to some of this, some may not be applicable to some of it. But these are the intellectual standards, these are the quality attributes. Is it clear? Is it accurate? Is it precise? Is it significant? Is it relevant? Is it complete? Or something is being left out? Is it fair? Is it logically correct? Is it logically sound and valid? Right? Sometimes, because of the construction of the argument, we make and others make logically incorrect arguments. And they on a casual reading, they don't look like incorrect. But they are invalid arguments, or they are not sound arguments. So you apply these intellectual standards, these 10 intellectual standards: clarity, accuracy, precision, relevance, significance, completeness, fairness, logical, and then breadth and depth. Apply these 10 intellectual standards on these 8 elements of thought, so that you can interpret well, correctly, logically, critically. You can infer critically, you can explain critically. Okay, all the other, these 5 intellectual engagements or products that we discussed yesterday. Apply all those standards on all those elements of thought in order to interpret, analyze, evaluate, infer, explain in a self-regulated manner. Okay. If you do it in this manner, you will prepare a good proposal. For preparing good proposal, you have to do a very good literature review and Obviously, I'm not expecting you to prepare a top class research proposal within this course. This course is only preparing you to prepare the research proposal that you will submit after a couple of months. That must be based on very good literature review, reviewed with a very critical eye, using all these principles that we have discussed, and then coming out with a identification of a research gap, good research question, proposing a method. Obviously, you can change the method, you may further refine the method in the process during your research, but to begin with, you must propose a method, which you can refine later. It is not binding that you must get stuck with that method only, but you must prepare a plan, a timeline. Okay. The main purpose of this course is to help you prepare a research proposal. And all the inputs that I'm trying to give you in this course so far are with that objective, that you prepare a good research proposal. Okay. So I can stop. If there are any questions, please ask. Hello. Yeah. Any questions, any clarifications anybody has to, any comments?
Sir, as we have collected data, some data, or means we are using secondary data, and the data has very much missing data also. So means it has around 10,000 rows, 10,000 of data, and around 3,000 the data is 60% data is missing. And
So you have to see how to overcome that problem.
yes, sir.
Can you go ahead using the data? Is there a way you can improve this data?
I have a way to improve this data, but with the accuracy of 73% only.
So that depends. I can't give you a general answer on this. It will depend upon the context. What is this data about? You know, on some, for some context, 73 may be very good. In some other context, 73 may be very bad.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes.
If it is a data jahan par generally data availability is 20%, then 73 is top class. But if it is a data about something for which we can easily collect 90% data, then 73 is very bad.
Yes, sir.
Right? So it has to be linked to the context. Context is very, very important.
Sir, according to context, it may be, I think it may be good.
Okay.
But I think I want your opinion too.
So you have to see what is, so I don't know what is a context, first of all. I can't comment in general on this. Okay. So we can discuss the context and then maybe give a more informed comment. But right now I can only say, in general, there are, so don't make me make a sweeping generalization. I said sweeping generalizations are bad. So this will be a sweeping generalization. As I said, 73 may be very good in some situation, 73 may be very bad in some situation. If somebody makes 73 rupees per day, he's a poor person. But if somebody makes $73 per day, not such a poor person. So 73 as a number can be good as well as bad.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Right? So we have to see that.
Okay. Sir.
Any other comment or question? Okay, we'll stop then. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.